This presentation will be to discuss the 20th century's most renowned educational theorist, Carl Rogers. Carl Rogers dedicated his life quite simply to education. He especially had emphasis on early childhood education and came up with some of the greatest theories and principles as it relates to 20th century classrooms, which still highly affect our classrooms right now in the 21st century. Due to the Chicago fire of 1871, the family of Carl Rogers moved out of Chicago into the local suburb of Oak Park, Illinois. That's where Carl Rogers was born in 1902. In 1924, he graduated with his bachelor's degree from the University of Wisconsin, and then went on to get his master's degree and PhD from Columbia University. Carl Rogers had a lifetime of achievements. Along with his theories and principles of childhood development, he also went on to publish several books, such as Client-Centered Therapy, On Becoming a Person, and Freedom to Learn. And even more amazingly, in 1987, the year of his death, he was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Quite possibly his greatest accomplishment is when Carl Rogers came up with the 4 principles and concepts of early childhood education. Now, watch an interactive discussion between Tammy Spidell and Anthony Lascola regarding these 4 principles.
So Anthony, explain to us the 4 principles of Rogers' theory.
Well, when it comes to Carl Rogers, the first principle of his theory of early childhood education, or just education in general, is one of my favorite ones, mainly because it involves the students, when they're learning the subject matter, it's being taught to them in a way that it directly relates to their interests and their desires and their strengths as far as learning. One example I can give, and the truth is when it comes to adults, children, we want to learn about things or how things relate to things we're already interested in. So that's a very natural thing. One example I'll give for younger children is a lot of kids love dinosaurs. And we want to be able to relate subtopics or just completely off-topic things to dinosaurs to grasp their attention, to keep their attention span high. So, for example, if we wanted to teach them about earthworms or any kind of worm, for example, one way of grasping that attention is, because at face value, how does a worm relate to a dinosaur? Well, worms have been on the earth as long as a dinosaur, and giving a student that approach would essentially grasp their attention as compared to, forget about dinosaurs, we're going to learn about worms today. We can teach them that worms were living in the earth during the time of the dinosaurs. For example, sometimes they'll get into the branch of a tree or a plant. A dinosaur comes along, eats the plant, thus eating the worm also. And then from there we can branch out and teach them about the plant that was also around during the time of the dinosaurs. So it's very important to relate all subject matter to the interests and desires of children.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds good. It's interesting because what that does is it lets what the child is already wanting to learn about be a part of the educational topic, instead of having the child have to stop thinking about that to think about what the teacher thinks is necessary in the moment. This way the child gets to continue to listen to the teacher and pursue their own interests. The second principle involves this too, branching. Second principle of Rogers is branching off of the child's interests, self-interests, but by adding additional information, adding new perspective. It's sometimes referred to as scaffolding. So for instance, if I see my 2-year-old building structures with blocks, and they have a cylindrical block that they keep putting a flat block onto, and it keeps falling, I can come alongside the student. I'm not going to interfere with what they're doing, but I can show them the characteristics of round and square, and show them what happens when round is stacked on round or square is stacked on square. I can just show him that. I can allow the child then to make the choices if he wants to continue having them fall, which might be his intention, or if he wants to use the new knowledge that he's just gained and see what structures he can make with the flat surfaces on the flat surface. That was Roger's second principle. And then the third one piggybacks on that. It's when do we introduce new information to a child? And his principle states that the young student will learn at an accelerated rate when their guard is down and they do not feel threatened by the situation. When your student, as you were talking about, wants to learn about dinosaurs, and we continue to allow him to learn different aspects of life through the study of dinosaurs, he's going to feel engaged. When we tell that same child he can no longer learn about dinosaurs because we have to learn about something else, he's going to start having self-doubt, and he's going to start feeling threatened. His ability to then assimilate the new information is going to diminish, and his rate of growth, his rate of learning is going to slow down. And research shows that students who are allowed to lead their learning and to initiate whatever interests them at the time, that accelerated type of learning goes on clear through their teenage years.
So Roger's fourth principle, also a very interesting one. I want to take the example you used about the blocks, kind of that old Montessori curriculum. It's always very interesting to watch a child engage in that. So the fourth principle talks about self-initiated learning and how the child is ultimately going to gain more from that, especially learn more from that over the long term. Example, if I, as the instructor, take the block and show the child, look, this is how you put it through. Will they get as much out of it as if, as I'm going to show them, they put their hands out, as you said off camera, and say, let me try? Studies show, and Rogers was pretty much dead on when he said the child taking it and doing it himself is going to allow the child to ultimately learn the action, learn the subject matter, whatever the case may be, better over the long term. And they're going to retain that information over the longer period of time.
And I think Rogers referred to that as experiential learning.
That's right. Very good. So now that you've seen our interactive discussion regarding Rogers' 4 principles and concepts, let's do a quick overview. The first principle states that the student will learn best when the content and subject matter can be related to their interests. The second principle is branching off that self-interest so that we can show them new subjects and new perspectives on things. The third principle is young students are going to learn more when their guard is down and they do not feel threatened. And then the final principle is going to be self-initiated learning is the best for long-term development. No lecturing. So we've just finished discussing the 4 principles of Rogers in early childhood education. You happen to be on the front lines of it. You are an early childhood educator. So if you can share with us, what does it actually look like applying those principles in the classroom setting?
Well, the foremost one principle is in how it relates in early childhood of how Rogers explained it, is the children get to lead their learning. And so I'm not going to determine what we're going to study today, what we're going to learn about today, what their experiences are going to be. I'm going to watch what they gravitate towards. You had used the blocks earlier. If that's what they want to use, I'm going to let them do that. If somebody else wants to do the dinosaurs or the babies, that's what they get to do. They get to do it all at the same time. What this does is it trusts the child that they can direct their own learning and that they'll be doing what they need to know, enjoy the whole process of learning, and to be motivated. How this translates in the classroom is as I observe what the children are interacting with, then I'm going to respond to them. I'm taking their lead. And I will allow the children to pursue the interests rather than determining what they should be thinking about. And what Rogers had said about the feeling of being threatened, this actually eliminates a child's feeling threatened by knowledge, because whatever they do want to learn, they're doing it because that they want to. The second thing that is important for the teacher, first the child leads his learning, then the teacher responds to what the child is doing, and we respond by giving them feedback. And there's a couple different kinds of effective feedback that Rogers refers to, and one is narrative feedback, where I will simply say, I see that you have the yellow block. I see that you're putting the yellow block into the hole that it fits into. So I'm narrating what I see the child do. And that's narrative feedback, and it's very important. When a child recognizes that their efforts are being, when a child knows that their efforts are being recognized, that then helps them with the process of self-actualization and building their concept of a positive sense of their own self. The other kind of feedback that is very important that we give the children is objective feedback. So that's when we're going to go through the scaffolding process, where we are going to acknowledge the information that they already know. We're going to add to it, like the example that we had used about the cylindrical blocks and the square blocks. The child already knew a certain amount of knowledge, but then in addition to identifying what they were doing, I gave them some additional information and gave them the choice of pursuing that information or not. By not dictating what a child should do with the information that they receive, that also helps them to self-actualize, as Rogers puts it. The other thing about objective feedback and narrative feedback is we don't want to attach any qualifications on it. One of the things that Rogers expresses is the conditional and unconditional. When we say, no, don't do it like that, it's supposed to be like this, you're using that the wrong way, you can only do it like this, we're actually placing conditions on them. We're implying that their idea that is important to them may be wrong, and that does a lot to break down and diminish their own sense of self-worth. So we want to be careful that we don't put any conditions or judgments on the tasks that the child is doing. And in the process of all of this, what you see is that the teacher or the caregiver is right alongside the student, right alongside the child.
So now that Tammy has shared with you more examples regarding the 4 principles of Rogers, we ask ourselves, how are these principles applied in the classroom? In the coming frames, you're going to see some actual child-centered video examples so that you can then reflect on discussion and reflection questions and ask yourself, what would you do in this situation and how do you feel about what you saw?
What's your idea? Oh, you want this to be where the gate is? Okay. What does the gate at Busch Gardens have? What does it have at it? Oh, a pusher thing. Oh, what are you going to use that for, Chloe? Oh, you're going to use the cement truck to be the ticker taker, the ticker machine, the ticket machine? Okay. Oh, hey, Ryder, would you like to use this for that somebody's not using? Thank you, Acadia. Do you want to do Busch Gardens with them?
I will.
You want to do Busch Gardens? What does Acadia need to help you, to go with you? What does she need? You need a ticket for Busch Gardens. Would you like a ticket, Acadia? Which ticket do you want to give her? Okay, you gave you a ticket. How is it working out with you fixing the
After we get in.
How are you making this? Oh, so you want the gate to go this way, and this is how they walk through. Okay.
After we get in.
Okay. Ryder, Chloe made this as the gate that you walk through Busch Gardens. So this is going to be the line, and this is this the ticket machine? Okay. So you have to stand here. You have to stand here at Busch Gardens. Yeah, you bring this with you, but the ticket person stands here. Oh, yeah, there you go. Well, she's crawling under. You can't do that. You have to wait till we take your tickets. Now pull up. Give her your ticket. Where are you going to put the ticket? Okay, it goes in the truck. Okay, and then you have to lift this up. You lift it up, and he walks through. He gets to go through. You have to lift it up. Yeah, a little higher. It might work if it. Now put it back down. She has to give you her ticket. All right. Now what? And yet you can't crawl into the gate. When you go to Busch Gardens, you have to give the ticket man your ticket. Give the employee, give the Busch Gardens guy your ticket. Can you do that? Okay. Very good. Now what comes next, Chloe? What's the next thing that the ticket person does? After the visitor gives you the ticket, what's the next thing you have to do? She's still stuck outside. What do you need to do?
I did it.
Open the gate. Okay, and she comes in. Okay, now you're inside Busch Gardens. Now where are you going to go?
What rides do you like to ride, Ryder?
The roller coaster.
Yeah?
Here you go. I'll show you mine.
Do you want to make any roller coasters?
Yeah.
What are you going to make the roller coaster out of?
We can make a round thing.
A round thing? How? What tools do you need?
We can make it big and go around.
Big and go around. Do we have anything here that we could do that with? Some of what? Oh, some blocks? You want to build one with some blocks?
But that won't.
That might not work. Are the blocks round? Ryder says that they might not work.
Yeah, because the roller coaster is big enough for somebody to ride.
Yeah. What do we have here that's big enough for you to sit in? Do we have anything? A chair. Do you want to put the chairs anywhere? Oh, a rope around it like what the seat belt is. What could you find here for a rope? Okay, Acadia has a chair. Now, where do you want to have the roller coaster? Ryder wants to make it over here. What other things could we use to make a seat belt for the chair up? Stars. Where do we find those? Okay, take it up. Okay, so Kai and Ryder are going to be in one chair together. You got your chair for the ride? Okay, so
after reviewing the classroom video of A Trip to Busch Garden, answer the following discussing questions. 1. What evidence is there that the children were following their own interests and enjoying their learning? 2. How does the teacher support the children's ideas, thus building positively on their self-concept? 3. How did the teacher's feedback promote learning, bringing in new perspectives? Identify a few of these learning concepts. Carl Rogers goes further in his theory to define adult interactions that support the child's self-actualization process. Unconditional, positive regard and feedback places no condition on child's worth. Uses descriptive and objective language. Allows child's self-concept to remain intact while offering guidance, feedback, and assessment to the child. Conditional, positive regard and feedback places conditions on how a child is valued. Adult assumes the conditions upon which the child's worth is determined. Child is only accepted when his behavior is in line with another's conditions.
Chloe, I need you to lay down and take your nap, okay? You haven't been very cooperative. I know you're not very tired, but I want you to make me happy. You'll make me really happy if you lay down and take your nap, okay? Okay, I don't want you to disappoint me. Which end do you want to sleep at? Do you want to sleep at this end? Okay? You need to be good by going to sleep now, okay? Because I'm not going to be happy with you if you don't take a nap like everybody else is. Okay? Can you please lay down? Chloe, it's nap time right now. Good girls take their naps. You're not being a good girl. I need you to close your book and cooperate and lay down. It'll be hard for you to sleep if you're sitting up, okay? Good girls lay down. I don't like what you're doing. You need to go take your nap now. Okay, be a good girl. Okay, I want you to take your nap and be a good girl. Thank you. rest a little bit before the kids wake up. Can you put your books over there? Thanks. And lay down for a few minutes. You don't have to go to sleep if you don't need to, but I just want you to try to rest your eyes, okay? There you go. Chloe, thank you for being so quiet.
After reviewing the classroom video of Chloe's nap, answer the following discussing question. In a reflective paragraph, describe your response to each of these teacher-child interactions. How might Rogers' theory influence your interactions with children in the classroom?
So let's talk a little bit about those important relationships between students and their caregivers and instructors. A common thing that the instructors will do with their children are give them a high five or tell them they did a good job. However, it's been determined by Rogers that that's inadequate feedback. So what would be some examples of how we can provide that meaningful feedback that a child needs?
Well, to be more explanatory, so let's just say that Sarah has just for the first time tied her shoes. And I could say, good job, Sarah. But if I want my words to have meaning and to help her develop her sense of self and her self-actualization, I could say, Sarah, you put your shoes on. You did not need any help. You did it all by yourself. You are growing. You know, I'm very proud of you. You look what you can do. Look what you can do. Sarah then has all of those statements that she stores to build on her own sense of who she is instead of good job. So that's one example of that.
All right, excellent.
Yeah.
As his teacher, respond to Blake with 5 or more statements of unconditional regard, recognizing his efforts and feedback, adding to his knowledge. Write these in list form. The final area of importance in Carl Rogers' theory relates to the characteristics and attributes of an effective teacher. Anthony explains.
Okay, so Anthony, we've talked about the child's role in learning based on Rogers' theory. What does Rogers have to say about the teacher's role?
he has a very interesting perspective on the teacher's role. He basically outlines for us 3 very key attributes that he feels teachers, instructors, caregivers should have in their approach to teaching children concepts. The first one he calls the realness attribute. And what this basically is not shying away from emotion. And when he says that, he doesn't just mean the child's emotion, he even means the instructor's emotion. You know, when they encounter a situation, they should more embrace it, even if it's challenging emotionally for them. And also, when it comes to the student's emotion, they shouldn't be drawn back. They should be able to kind of delve right in there and be involved in the situation and then integrate that into what they're ultimately trying to teach the child, the subject matter. The second attribute he calls prize the learner. And what this means is the instructor needs to trust his students. All the emotions, the hesitations, the eagerness that a student feels, again, don't shy away from those type of things. He feels the instructor ultimately needs to embrace those things and help the child build upon their development of those emotions. The third attribute is finding out from the instructor's perspective, what is the student feeling? Like, what are they actually feeling? What's potentially going through their mind, going through their heart, even in that exact moment? This is especially important because we live in an extremely diverse society nowadays when it comes to students that might be gifted or English language learners or students that are in special needs programs. It's especially important that the instructors can put themselves in those students' shoes and more effectively help them in helping them learn these concepts and subjects that we're ultimately trying to teach them. Carl Rogers lists 3 characteristics and attributes of an effective teacher. The first is realness. This means that a teacher should be in touch with their own feelings and those of their students. 2 is prize the learner. Educators should accept and trust all of their students and show that acceptance through all of the students' eagerness, hesitations, and displays of emotion. 3rd is empathetic understanding. They should know and understand what their individual students are feeling internally regarding the lessons being taught in correlation with their emotions.
Personal reflection. How do your qualities as a teacher reflect these characteristics? We are like a mirror in which the child sees his reflection. Our goal is to have what we reflect back to the child be representative of what the child sees in himself. Carl Rogers' work had a tremendous impact in psychology, child development, education, and peace efforts throughout the world. Always in the center of it is the whole person being able to achieve their highest potential. Self-initiated learning, which involves the whole person of the learner, feelings as well as intellect, is the most lasting and pervasive. We gain valuable insight and information from our study of Carl Rogers' theories applied to education. We hope this presentation will provide us all with concrete concepts to make our teaching effective while each child reaches toward their potential.